Hi, folks. Okay, for this meeting coming up, we're going to be looking at mainly at collaboration with teachers and also with students, but of course teachers are the main thing. But there's going to be a great deal of technology kind of woven in because technology is one of your big opportunities to collaborate. And also, I think you're going to see that collaboration is one of the keys to making the library the center for learning in the school. Because you want the library to be where everybody comes to talk to everybody else and to get everything they need. And that's kind of what makes it a learning commons. So I think you're going to see that all three of those things are kind of woven in here. So I thought the mountain motif was appropriate for the PowerPoint this time because from the way that you all been talking, but also honestly the way I hear a lot of the librarians that I work with talking, collaboration often feels like this giant mountain that you have to climb all by yourself, like you're doing all the heavy lifting. So let's take a look at, before we get into how to collaborate, let's take a look at some of the reasons why. What are the benefits to collaboration? Okay, for you, one of the big benefits is greater job security. If your administration or your district decides to try to cut down on school librarians, maybe only have a half-time one, or some districts have even like put paraprofessionals in, and all the teachers in your school raise Cain and say, hey, we can't do without her, or your principal says, I'm not doing without her, then that gives you a lot more job security, doesn't it? And several of you mentioned that a lot of times you're not considered a teacher in the school. Well, collaboration gives you many more opportunities for more collegiality, for becoming part of that teacher group. Also, of course, it means that you grow professionally. When you collaborate, you're going to be investigating and teaching and helping to teach subjects that you've never taught, that you don't know a whole lot about, maybe ages you haven't taught, maybe you haven't been a teacher at all. So there's a lot of growth opportunities for you, and that's kind of fun. Um, of course, one of the big benefits is the students in your school gain more resources and more support for their learning. And the teachers in your school grow too because you have a lot to offer them. And I'm sure you can think of a whole bunch of other possibilities, possible benefits. But before we paint too rosy a picture here, there are some barriers, aren't there? And probably the biggest barrier is simply time. Your time, the teacher's time. Everybody feels like they don't have enough time. And as you pointed out, teachers don't often, sometimes teachers don't consider you as a potential collaborator in teaching. They think of you as somebody who watches and orders the books. So you have to change some mindsets. With a lot of teachers, there's also a question of territoriality. They want control of their classroom. And so teachers aren't very good at collaborating with each other either, by the way. There are the occasional sets of teachers that do this really well, but it's more the exception than the rule. And those of you that have spent, I mean, you've all spent time in schools, look around, you know that, or when you were a teacher yourself. Another barrier is teacher anxiety. Teachers are concerned that if they start to work with you, does that mean, I mean, everybody has things they don't do very well as a teacher. Teaching is probably one of the hardest jobs there is. And I know that that sounds foolish maybe, but honestly, if you're a doctor or a lawyer, at least the people you're working with are on your side. Both you and the patient want to get better. Both you and your client want the legal case to go the way you want it to. Okay, you're on the same side. Teachers have to deal with a whole lot of kids who aren't necessarily on their side. There's a bunch of kids you deal with every day in a school who don't want what you want. Not because they're evil, horrible children, but because they don't know how good what you want for them is. Okay, so teaching is one of the hardest jobs there is, I think. I really believe that. I mean, I teach, and I teach under much easier circumstances, I think, although I didn't always. I've been a teacher for over 40 years. And there's anxiety anytime you let somebody else into your room, into your life, that they'll see that you're not planning everything perfectly and you're not controlling everything perfectly and your kids don't act perfectly. And so there's anxiety about collaboration. And again, this is teacher-teacher as well as teacher-librarian. Probably one of the biggest barriers is that the teachers simply don't know what all you can do for them. They don't understand how much you have to offer and how much you can actually make their lives easier. And of course, there's tradition. Okay? They've never done it this way, and we've never done it that way in our school, and I've never worked with a librarian before, and so why would I start now? And again, I'm sure you can think of some barriers that are unique to your context and your school. Okay, so you're going to be reading an article by Hickel called A Formula for Achieving Collaboration that's going to give you some steps toward collaboration. But I think one of the things that really helps when we start to think about collaboration is that there are lots of different levels and types of collaboration. Now, later you're going to be watching 2 out of 4 videos. I'm going to let you just pick what you want. And they're talking about the big collaboration, where the librarian co-teaches the unit and helps with the grading and all that. But that's the high jump. And you don't start at the high jump. So let's talk about some levels here. Okay, first of all, collaboration can happen with both teachers and students. And sometimes one of the ways you get your foot in the door is by collaborating with the students, by offering not just to help them when they ask for some help with something, but to sit down with the students and say, hey, I hear you've got this big assignment in such and such. What can I do to help? Honestly, I will hand you that phrase. That is one of the most useful phrases I know of in the whole world. What can I do to help? When I'm dealing with an undergraduate, for example, who has missed the last 3 classes and isn't turning in any of her work, if I send her an email saying, why have you missed all these classes? Why aren't you turning in your work? Don't you understand you're going to fail the course? I'm probably not opening up a great line of communication. But if I send her the same email, said differently, if I say, gee, you've missed the last 3 classes and I haven't seen any work from you, I'm really concerned. What can I do to help? It's amazing. People answer you. I love that phrase. I have to keep forcing myself to do it because, of course, my natural response is, what's wrong with you? Why haven't you done your work? But it's not a useful response. So anyway, so let's look at the working with teachers side here first, okay? You can start by just sharing something without being asked. You can share an article with the whole school. There's got to be like a school mail-out email or something, a listserv, or maybe through your principal or whoever sends emails to the whole group. Just, hey, I found this neat article, thought I'd share it. Or some small, easy kind of tech, maybe a website. Maybe just a couple new books. And here you can be targeted. You can send out, if you know that the 4th grade is doing stuff on careers, you don't have to wait for them to ask you to help. You don't have to go to them and say, well, I'd like to sit down and have a meeting with you so I know what you want on careers, because to their mind, that's like, okay, now she wants an hour of my time and I don't have any time. What you could do is just hunt up 3 or 4 really good books or websites on careers and send them to the 4th grade teachers and say, hey, I know you're about to start your career unit. Here's a few things I ran into and here's a few things we have in the library thought you might want to know about. Something easy. Okay? So you just share something without being asked. You can also create a resource for them without being asked. See, the more that you do to show them what you can do to help, the more likely they are to ask you the next time. So say the 2nd graders are studying animals of Georgia or whatever they study in 2nd grade. Okay, well, you can spend 2 hours maybe, or at least it would take me that long. You're probably quicker than I am. Finding 3 or 4 great websites on animals of Georgia. Put them together in a short PowerPoint or a Padlet or however you share stuff, and say, hey, here's a place your kids can go with 4 vetted websites. Or go down and say, hey, I put together this thing on how they could research animals because I know they have to. I thought it might help. Now you have to be careful. You don't want to insult them like they didn't have one, but especially if you know if there's something new going on, you can just create something. Okay? Now the next step up, you can see the colors are getting closer and closer to blue. We start at yellow, we move through green, we go to blue. This, by the way, this little slide here was made with a program called Bubble.us, which is really, really easy to use. I learned how to do it by myself in about 20 minutes. And if I can do that, you can do that. And it makes these cool, like, thought web things. And you can color them differently and draw arrows here and there. It's really fun. Okay, so next step. You can find resources when they ask you. You know, if you provide a list of websites or books for their unit, you know, the next time 1 or 2 of those teachers is going to come to you and say, hey, now I've got to do a unit on fish. Do you have anything? There you go. You're collaborating. Okay. Another way to do collaboration has to do with helping teachers in professional development. And professional development on the fly is like, it's kind of like they don't know they're getting professional development. That's partly like the thing where you send out this small, really easy tech, and maybe you just post some step-by-step instructions with the screen captures on something really simple that you're learning how to do, like the Animoto or any of these texts. We're going to talk about texts. My brain just went blank, but they're coming. Okay. So you post it, or you're in their room, they ask you to come in and help with some tech, and you say, oh, you know, the next time this happens, here's something you could do. That's what I mean by on the fly. Really quickie stuff. Now, a really useful thing is doing small professional development. And that's really more like, we're going to talk about the drop-in a minute, but that's more like what I meant when I was talking about the online, okay? You post something on the library website saying, hey, here's a list of instructions for making an Animoto and a couple of tutorial sites and an example of a couple, and I think you guys, your kids would love doing them, and I think you might enjoy, you know, they might be a good resource for you, and it's all waiting on the library website anytime, okay? That's small professional development. Another really cool, successful thing that I've worked with some librarians who did is they did drop-in professional development, okay? So like once every couple of weeks or once every month, they said, okay, we're having drop-in PD today on blank. Maybe it's the data set they have to use for the district, the data management program. But maybe it's something a little more fun, who knows? But pick something that you think they need to learn or that you know they need to learn because the principal said they have to learn it, and have a drop-in day and have a big coffee pot going in the library with some little snacks. And whenever they have time, they can drop in, take 15 minutes to learn how to do this and walk away with an instruction sheet. And any time during the day. Now, does that mean you need to be able to devote time? Yes. If you have a parapro, they're going to have to check stuff out that day and read to kids and stuff. If you don't have a parapro or you only have one for half a day, you might need to bring in a volunteer to do some checkout. Or honestly, you can teach kids to check out books themselves. That's something that's not hard to do. Or if you're in middle school or high school, maybe your Gamma kids, your library rats, can come in for some periods and help. So you do have to find a way to free yourself up, yes. But that drop-in day when teachers can just stop in during their prep time, during their free time, before or after school, that works really well. Another type of small professional development is breakfast in the library, or lunch, or whatever, or after school snack or whatever. But after school, most people want to leave. But breakfast in the library, lunch in the library, and again, you find snacks, or they can bring their breakfast from the cafeteria or something. Clear a space for them. If you have a conference room, that's an awesome thing. If you don't, just block off half the library and tell the kids they got to be in the other half or whatever. And say, okay, you know, breakfast in the library, we're all going to eat and I'm going to show you a few things. No big deal. This is also a really great thing to do during the prep days before school and the close-up days after school and the middle days, the professional days that you have, because everybody kind of wants to take a break from clearing up their room or posting their whatever they're doing. So you have lunch in the library that day. And you just show them, hey, here's some new stuff we've got in the library this year. We're real excited about it. This is some changes we made. No big presentation, just chatting. And just like when you're working together, give the teachers a chance to chat together too. Say, how do you think you might use this? You know, turn to your neighbor and say, wow, which of the things I showed you today was really useful to you? Something like that. Of course, then you can move up to doing major professional development. And if you've been doing this kind of stuff, your administration is going to call on you to do major presentations probably during some of the professional learning days. And so you're kind of working your way up to there. And I know, sorry about that, I know of a librarian that's been done so, he helped 2 teachers move to flipped classrooms in his school. That was his project last year. And they did so well that they asked him to present on the benefits and ways to do flipped classrooms to his school. And the teachers were so excited about it that they asked him this fall, he's doing major professional development during the professional learning days before school, not only in his school, but in 3 other elementary schools. So you never know where that's going to take you. So sometimes you end up representing your school in places. Okay, now, that was the professional development track. Let's get back over to the teaching track. You can find resources for people when asked. You can start to, if you start finding lots of resources and stuff, naturally conversations will lead you to start doing some co-planning. You're going to say, hey, well, what do you have in mind here? Let me know what you need. And eventually maybe some co-teaching with teachers. So those are all cool things to do. Co-teaching can be more co and less co. Sometimes they just want you to walk in, do a 20-minute or a 1-period spiel on here's how to look things up. Well, it's not terrifically collaborative, but it's a beginning. And if you say, well, tell me what you guys are doing so I can kind of slant it that way, then you can show them how useful you are. Okay? Way down here at the bottom, you see something called School Literacy Committee. There's one of your optional articles is on establishing a school literacy committee that is basically led. Oh, I love that. I have 3 M's in committee and 1 T. Clearly, it wasn't a good day for spelling when I made this. Sorry about that. But anyway, the article talks about establishing a school literacy committee with the librarian as one of the co-leaders of it. So that's a really useful thing. Now let's look for a second over here at working with students, because you can just walk up to a student and help them when they didn't ask. You know, say, hey, you look like you're looking for a book. Or you can help them with work. Hey, you know, they're sitting there working away on something. You can walk up and say, hey, can I help you with anything? You know, I used to be pretty good at math, or I used to be pretty good at history, or whatever. And then, of course, when you start to be helpful, students are going to start asking for help. And one of the main ways you can work with students, as you know, is to help them find resources. And you don't just hand them to them, but you help them. But also you can start helping them with projects. Give them a chance to sit down just for 5 minutes and brainstorm with you, because they don't know how to brainstorm and nobody listens to them. So, you know, they may not be sure what they want to do or which president they want to pick or how they should be putting this together or whether they want to do a poster or a PowerPoint. Let them talk it out for a minute. And you start, of course, to be teaching. And you start doing that with them in the library. Their teachers start to hear, hey, she really helped me with this. They're more likely to invite you to co-teach. And of course, you guys have already talked about hosting events for students, book clubs and parent nights and breakfast with dad and poetry slams and all those things. And collaborate with students on these. Don't make yourself do all the work. Pull in a few students that are very interested, or if you're feeling gutsy and have a little energy, some students who you think need to get interested, and let them help plan it for you. They can do part of the work, but also it's huge for them to be part of that. Not just to bring dad to breakfast, but to be one of the 5th graders or 4th graders who help plan the breakfast with dad. not just to appear at the poetry slam, but to be one of the people who put it together and publicized it. Those are all great ways to collaborate with students. And you start doing all this and you end up right at the bottom as the school literacy leader, and the library becomes the place, the learning commons. So just wanted to give you a notion of the scope of collaboration, because I think sometimes when we think of collaboration, the first thing we think of is going to the teacher and saying, well, I'd like to sit down in a meeting with you and start to collaborate. And that's probably not going to get you where you want to go. So what will get you where you want to go? Here's some hints from some of the articles, some of the optional articles, and some of the other stuff I've read. First of all, build relationships. It's all about relationships in schools. You spend your lives in schools. You know that teachers are people, and the people they like, they work with. The people they don't know or don't like, they don't work with. They need to feel safe to work with you because, as I said, teaching is very difficult, and teachers are under huge attack right now. Everybody's mad at them because they aren't doing everything perfectly, okay? And they're not being able to do the impossible task of taking an assorted group of 27 kids and pulling them all to grade level in 1 year. Okay, so teachers are feeling a little vulnerable. Relationships help a lot. Start by solving their problem. Make their lives easier. Save them time. Don't take them time. Don't say, I need a meeting with you. Walk in and say, hey, I had this. I wondered if you could use it. Start small and grow. And that's why that chart on collaboration, start with the little stuff. That's fine. If you can start with the big stuff and there's a teacher who wants to work with you, go for it. Food is good. Always feed people. Feed people as much as you can afford to feed them that they ought to eat, and maybe a little more. Brownies get you far. Homemade cookies go a long way to pulling teachers into the library. Coffee and homemade cookies, and you'll see more teachers in there than you ever thought. When you decide to get into the deeper type of collaboration, look for a willing collaborator. Look for somebody who's eager. And when you've started doing that, if you work with somebody and you co-teach a project or you co-teach a unit or something, very subtly make sure people know about that and document it. So, make sure you send something to your principal saying, hey, I just wanted to tell you how much I enjoyed working with Mrs. Anderson on her real world math unit. I learned so much from her. Wow. Mrs. Anderson is now your friend for life, but your principal also knows that you're in there. You're doing something besides checking in books. Okay? Publicize it to the newspaper. Lord, local newspapers need filler. Have kids, if kids wrote things, have them send some of them to the newspaper. Have them write to the letters to the editor and tell about what they learned. Have them write. I had one librarian who had her kids decided to write to the mayor because they thought some things needed changing. Now, this was second graders, so one of the things they thought is there needed to be more toy stores in the town. And I'm not sure the mayor had a lot of control over that. But you know what? The mayor wrote back. And then he told them if they all wrote him another letter, he'd come to their school, and he did. And he visited their class. And they got in the newspaper and everything. So document. If you work with Mrs. Johnson on who has a group of learning disabled kids, let people know, hey, it was so great working with Mrs. Johnson, and it was so exciting to see that her kids checked out 40% more books after we did this project than they ever had before. And I just love doing that kind of stuff. And your principal will be happy. The other teachers will go, well, hey, maybe she could do that for me. And the reason I say subtly is because you can't blow your own horn too hard, and you know that. But make sure somebody knows this stuff. And of course, make them look good. Make the teachers look good. Make your principal look good. If you get stuff in the paper about this cool project you did, or how the circulation is increased in your library, or whatever, it's going to make your principal and your school look good. And your teachers. And people love people who make them look good. You know that. Okay. as I said, one of your ins with teachers is tech, because for some teachers, tech is a dreaded monster. Isn't this a wonderful tech monster? I couldn't resist the picture. And the fact is, they now don't have a choice, do they? They're being told they have to integrate technology. And some of them are digging in their heels and being dragged, kicking and screaming, but those are the ones who are really scared. So this is an in for you. Let's talk about why some teachers just really resist technology. And again, it's time and energy. To help them, your time and their time. Inexperience and steep learning curves. And we've all had this feeling when somebody comes along and says, oh, well, I've got this brand new program you have to learn. It's kind of like, oh my God, I really needed this now. When we decided to put this workshop online, I realized that we weren't going to fit. We started with 18 people. We weren't going to fit 18 people or 16 people or 14 people or 12 people into Google Hangouts, which is what I had been using for my classes. And I just had 2 sessions, but I didn't want to divide you guys up. So I had to learn a whole new interface, Canvas. And Angie knows I was having a hard time with it, like, how do you do this? How do you do that? And so when you don't know how to do something, and especially if you haven't learned a lot of different tech before, it's a very steep learning curve, isn't it? You're afraid. You're afraid you'll break something. There's still teachers who think they can break the computer by doing something. I mean, as far as I know, the only way you can break the computer is drop it. Okay? But they think if they press the wrong buttons, they'll break the computer. They're afraid of failing. They're afraid, and you can fail very publicly with tech, as you know, all in front of your students and everybody, and that's embarrassing. In schools, there are also equipment and software barriers, okay? It's really difficult in some schools, in fact, in some pieces of all schools, to do what you want to do because you can't get the laptop cart, or half the iPads don't work, or the broadband connection isn't good enough, or God help you, your school blocks YouTube, okay, or blocks Google, or whatever. So there are real barriers there. But of course, it's also tradition and habit. I've always taught this way. I know how to teach this way. I have my lesson plans all done. Please don't disturb me. And I think one of the biggest factors is they don't recognize the huge payoffs. Because if you integrate technology using project-based learning, personalized learning, authentic tasks, if you can pull that off, the planning is huge and it's a big pain. But you know what? You're not going to spend your time sending kids to the principal either. You're not going to have to fight with your kids to get them to learn, and that saves you a lot of time and energy too. Okay, so how do we overcome these things? We listen to them. We ask, can I help you with that? Oh, I'd be happy to show you that. Oh, that bothered me a lot too. Let me show you what they finally taught me. And we respect them, even the ones that are real hard to respect, even the ones that seem like they're stuck back in, not 1980, they're stuck back in 1965, okay? But we respect them because they're doing the best they can. As somebody said, be kind, because everyone is doing the best that they can. Okay, but those are generalities, but they're important ones. One thing I told you, this is my tip. Teach people, especially tech-scared, tech-terrified teachers, teach them one thing in 5 minutes or 15 minutes. One thing, okay? Only one thing. You know so much and you want to tell them all of it, and I have exactly the same problem, which is why you have all those optionals, okay? Because I can't resist, but at least I don't make you look at all of them, okay? So I sympathize. You have 10 websites you want to share with them. You have 20 apps that they could use on their iPads today. Don't do it. Just don't do it. Teach them one thing. One thing. Now, if you're doing a whole day professional development, yeah, you're going to teach them more than one thing. But I wouldn't teach them more than 3 in depth. I would teach them 3 things, max, 2, maybe 3, and I would let them work with it and talk with each other about how they could use it and make plans and draw up a plan, you know, because teaching them 10 things that they go back to their room and say, God, I can't remember any of this. It's all just swimming in my head, and they didn't make any plans for how to use it. You just wasted your day. So less is more. It's so hard. I know. I have trouble myself, as you know, but less is more. Here are 5 things to start, and see, I'm not giving you one, but I know you can handle it. Here are 5 things to start with for teachers that are terrified of tech. And start with 1, but here's 5 to pick from. Wordle. Wordle is wonderful. If you haven't played, most of you have played with Wordle. Wordle is easy, and it makes cool looking stuff that they can use in their PowerPoints, and they can teach kids how to do it. And like I said, it's easy, but also Wordle actually helps kids understand main ideas and pull out details and stuff. So Wordle is something to show on those drop-in days, you know, say, hey, drop in today, we're going to show everybody how to do Wordle. Now maybe for your teachers that's too simple, okay? But you'd be surprised, there's quite a few. Another real simple thing is the Khan Academy. And you spend a little time maybe in a meeting or a personal learning day showing them how to find stuff in Khan Academy, and they can use that to supplement instruction for kids that are behind. One of the articles that you're going to read that is in the optionals says the first step should be get them a Gmail. Because once you have a Gmail, you can use Google. For, I mean, not just the search, but you know what I mean, all the Google suite. So the first step is getting a Gmail and figuring out how to use Gmail. Do you still have teachers that really don't like email? We still have some at the university who refuse to use it, believe it or not. Gmail's the place to start with them. Padlet you guys already used. As you can see, it's very simple, very easy, and again, it produces something that's cool, and they can teach kids how to do it and use it. And it's another way for informal assessment, and it's something that, you know, it's kind of a fun thing. And then Teachers Pay Teachers is another great place to show them, because there are lessons and there are units and there are resources, and yeah, they cost a little tiny bit, but most of us are willing to pay 50 cents or $1 for a whole unit. So Teachers Pay Teachers is a great site. Again, on those professional learning days, if they give you half an hour, show them Teachers Pay Teachers and let them play around with it. Make them bring their computers or hand them all laptops. 5 more to go on with. I have YouTube and Google up here, not because you don't know about them, and I'm counting them as 1, but I want to point out something you might not have shared with your teachers. And this is something I learned just 2 years ago from my son. YouTube and Google know how to do everything. If I'm having trouble with, I was having trouble getting Canvas to do something, I Google, how do you get Canvas to blank? And somebody out there knows how. My car keys have those smart keys, you know, with the battery that opens the door for you. And the guy at the dealership, my battery ran out and my car wouldn't start. Well, it barely started. I was in deep trouble, okay? Because without the smart key battery, you can't start your car. And I called the dealer and he said, well, no problem. We can put a new one in for you and reprogram it and everything. It'll only be $185. And I thought to myself, I'm not sure I need to spend $185 on this. And I went to Google, and guess what? There was a YouTube video showing me how to replace the $3.47 battery in my smart key for my car, 2007 Prius. And I did it. It took me I had to go to Walmart and get the battery. The whole thing took less than 2 hours and saved me $180 some. YouTube and Google know everything. It's amazing. And I don't know if your teachers know that, because, I mean, maybe they're all smarter than I was, but I didn't know it till a couple of years ago. My son taught me. Because I went and I said, well, how do you do this? How did you know how to do this? And he said, YouTube and Google know everything. So that's why that's up there. Bubble Us is the program that I use to make that map of different kinds of collaboration. It's a really, really easy brainstorming concept mapping tool. It's not fancy, okay, but it makes fun colored stuff and it's very easy to learn. And again, I think your teachers might enjoy it and be able to share it with their kids. TED-Ed is the TEDx education branch. Lessons worth sharing, very cool. Animoto, you have the opportunity to learn in this module. It makes really awesome, and at least watch the sample Animoto book trailer. It makes awesome looking videos very, very easily from stills and stuff. And now you can incorporate videos, but you don't have to. And here's one hardly anybody I know knows about, the Simple English Wikipedia. Google it. It's Wikipedia, and by the way, if you think Google and Wikipedia are the enemy, you're not right. And if your teachers probably do think Google and Wikipedia are the enemy, they're wrong. Because when you and I want to find something out, what do? You Google first. Yes, you have to learn what to pay attention to and what not to pay attention to. In Wikipedia, I'm not going to go to the article on Donald Trump or anything controversial, but you know, if I want to know what, if I'm reading about a medicine I have to take and I want to know what this scientific term means, Wikipedia will tell me. If I want to know what a car part that my mechanic says my car needs is, Wikipedia will tell me. Wikipedia is a wonderful thing. If anybody tells you, well, it's no good because anybody can edit it, that was true at the very beginning, but it's not now. To be an editor on Wikipedia is a pretty tough thing. You have to qualify, you have to do a good job doing minor edits. They're pretty tough on it. I would say Wikipedia is at the quality of Britannica or any of the other encyclopedias right now, and a lot broader. But back to Simple English Wikipedia. Wikipedia has a simplified version that has, because when you read normal Wikipedia articles, you're probably reading on a high school level, at least. Some of them are on a college level. But Simple English Wikipedia is down at a 5th or 6th grade level. And so it's great for younger kids. It's also wonderful for English language learners. You get the same information, but it's written more simply. Shorter sentences, easier phrases, easier vocabulary. And by the way, the other really good thing about Wikipedia is the references. Okay, you can't cite Wikipedia. I know that as a scholar. I don't cite Wikipedia when I write papers. But you know what? I might look in Wikipedia for something because they've cited the original sources down at the bottom of a good Wikipedia article. And I can find those sources. So don't undersell those things. Okay, so easy start out ideas. We've talked about them. Okay, how do we get all this going? Share an article or a simple website in an all-faculty email. You know, just send it out. Whoever sends it out. Say, hey, I found this site. Wow, I just saw this cool stuff on Smithsonian.com. Did you know? I never knew all this was out there. Okay, share a resource to share with parents. I'm going to put in this module, in the optionals again, a parent reading tip sheet that I've shared with a whole lot of librarians, that they've shared with a whole lot, and teachers, and they've shared with a whole lot of parents. And so that's the kind of resource I mean, something that the teachers can hand parents that you found. Make and send to a teacher or a department or a grade level a short personalized book list, fiction or nonfiction, okay? If you know they're studying the Holocaust, send them, I mean short, don't give them a list of 30 books. Give them a list of your 5 best for 3rd grade, if that's who's studying the Holocaust, okay? Post some step-by-step how-to tech guides with screenshots on the library website. Feature a class and their work on the library website once a month. This comes under the category of making them look good. Oh look, I've got an extra apostrophe. Don't forget the SPED kids, okay? If you hear that Mrs. So-and-so is doing something cool, well, go take some pictures, talk to some kids, talk to Mrs. So-and-so and put it all up on the library website. Look at this cool stuff. Offer a themed book tasting with food for the teachers or the kids. Take your pick. And by a themed, I don't mean necessarily a genre, okay? because most people aren't that all interested in genres. We are, because we're literary geeks, but they aren't. But maybe classic graphic novels. You know, teachers haven't looked at graphic novels, a lot of them. This is a good time. Books for struggling readers. Again, the teachers need books for struggling readers. Your high-low books, you know, the ones that are interest level 6th, 7th, 8th grade and reading level 3rd, 4th grade. Stories to use to teach mathematics. Host the math department. Or if you're in elementary school, all teachers could use it. And have food. Again, nothing much, just coffee and brownies maybe. And you can, of course, have book tasting for kids, too, and have the teachers bring their classes in for them. And that's fun, too. Yeah, you have to scale back a little on the treats. You know, they've got to be easy to buy cookies or candy or something and maybe some Kool-Aid. Offer that drop-in tech day we talked about. Host breakfast or lunch in the library. Host a teacher's share book site for professional and fun books. In other words, we've talked about having a review site and a community for kids. Have one for your teachers and have 2 different chunks so they can share professional books they read that really inspired them or were interesting to them, and they can also share books they read just for fun. And start by asking a few of your allies, a few of the teachers you know will go along with you, to post first. Okay, so last thing I want to talk about, because I've kind of hinted at this, is one of the things you can do is help them find fiction or narratives to use to teach their content. And this is not something they think about. When they think about teaching content, they think about using textbooks or maybe nonfiction trade books, but informational books. And one of the things we know is that people are hardwired to learn from stories. Stories attract us. Stories pique a kid's interest, whether it's a true story or a fictional story. We love stories. Human beings, their native means of learning is stories, okay? So if you're studying the Holocaust, we know, read Diary of Anne Frank. But if you're studying the Civil Rights Movement, you read The Watsons Go to Birmingham. That's going to make a bigger impression and help them learn more about why civil rights was needed and what happened before that and stuff than any number of textbooks. Okay, so using fiction or true narrative, doesn't matter which, to teach with is a huge, cool, good thing to do, but most teachers don't know how to do it. So help them know why. And these are all quotes from an article on this. Narrative gets kids curious. They want to know what happened next. It levels the playing field because it's usually easier to read than textbooks. It also hammers home everyday details. Hammers home. A lot of glitches in this one. Sorry, guys. Proofreading issues tonight. Because you need to know how the people really lived. I mean, if you're studying the ancient Romans, and they'll tell you the Romans had this and did this, and this is their customs, and these were their houses, well, that's all cool. But if you can read a story by Mary Stuart set in that time, you're going to understand all those things a lot better, aren't you? It puts the people back into the subject matter. Lots of times when we study subjects, we forget that this is all human knowledge and used by humans and perverted by humans and misused by humans and needed by humans. And so that's important. Also, stories can present the complexity and ambiguity of issues. Good stories, for example, about the Civil War period don't make it look like like one side is all right and the other side is all wrong. It's not like that. You start to see real people on both sides of everything. And that's why it promotes multiple perspectives and creates empathy. And there was that article that was one of the optional articles just a couple times ago that talks about we have evidence that reading fiction creates empathy. So these are why to use it. You can help them find it. And I strongly urge you to start offering this to people. And I think you may find that it's interesting. Okay, and you're still meeting the standards and you're still teaching the standards, and they're going to do better on the tests because they're not remembering meaningless details. They're knowing things. And knowing something is real different from remembering it because you studied it. Anyway, that's my thing for today. And have a great weekend. I hope this all turns out real useful to you. I want to talk just briefly about what else is going on. Like I said, you're going to read an article by Hickel, Formula for Achieving Collaboration, and another one by Harold on why EdTech is not transforming how teachers teach. It's a really interesting article. I've also given you a real short thing, which was a project report from 2 years ago called Tiger Prints, in which a teacher and a librarian collaborated on the project. It was one of these teacher quality projects from this, and it came out really nicely, and I think you'll enjoy it. Then I've got 4 videos of teachers talking about how collaboration with their school librarians has been good for them, and you can pick any 2 you want to read. I'm fine with that. You can watch all 4 if you want to, but pick 2. And then I'm asking you to think of a book that you have read recently for yourself with pleasure, just for enjoyment. Not a book that you read, about libraries. I mean, to get to be a better librarian. Not a book that you read so you could recommend it to kids, but a book for you. And I want you to either make a book poster or a book trailer about your book. It's totally your choice which you do. You can, if you decide to make a book poster, you can use PowerPoint or any other thing that makes slides or presentations, or, and this might be more fun, you can draw, or you can cut and paste, or you can make a collage book poster, I don't care, and then take a picture of it, okay? If you decide to make a book trailer, I have given you a sheet of instructions for using Animoto, which is one of the best tools I've ever seen for making book trailers and not hard to learn. But you can also use anything else you know how to use. Somebody mentioned one in class tonight, how to do that, and I can't remember the name of it because I didn't know it. But anything that works for you, okay? If you do a book trailer, remember, the purpose of a book trailer, and a book poster for that matter, is to entice people to read the book. You're doing a sales job, it's a marketing job, so use words and images to tell people just why this is such a great book. And don't do spoilers. Don't give too much away. Okay? So you've got also some interesting optional stuff. There's a lot of optional stuff on collaboration. The one on school library committees I found particularly useful. There's an example called Team Up. Librarians as leaders in professional learning communities is really interesting. And back on that library as learning commons theme, we have librarians as learning specialists. And then we've got about 4 really good optionals on technology and teachers. Kaplan wrote about 5 tips and tools for the tech-terrified teacher. And this was originally a blog post in 2012. And honestly, the blog is okay, but the comments section is awesome. If you just want to sit down sometime with a drink of something and start reading those comments, teachers really bare their souls in those comments. Hopkins also talks about training teachers who are terrorized by technology. I don't like the word training. I don't believe we train teachers. We train dogs. But I imagine he was trying to be alliterative, training teachers who are terrorized. You can see what's happening there. Chance and Lesesny wrote Rethinking Reading Promotion, which was one of the seminal articles on book trailers. And there's a real short, single nifty idea for how to use book trailers in an even more integrated way in your library in making book trailers better. And then as soon as I have the energy, which isn't going to be tonight because it's late already, or rather early, there's going to be a resource bank of websites to share with teachers. In the Neat Things discussions board, I'm going to start a thread and I'm just going to list them, and then you can add the ones that you have, okay? And that'll go up too. So that's it for today. Have a great weekend, have good conversations, and I'll talk with you on Monday. Bye.